All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Doug Bertram. Doug, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you, I have been looking forward to this, and I got to start. I don't got to. I want to start by just giving a shout out to your PR person, Sydney. Sydney, is it Kuhn? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, yeah, with
Okay,
Ray
okay.
Golf PR, yeah.
Okay. And I'll tell you what, she is like really, really good at talking you up, Doug, because she reached out to me on the quoted platform and she sent me a message and was telling me why she thought you would be a really great person to interview for the podcast. And by the time I got done reading what she wrote, I'm like, heck yeah, I want to talk with Doug and get to know him. And so you and I already got to have that conversation. And even today, Sydney was messaging me today, just like, hey, Kev, just wanted to check in, make sure you're good to go for the interview with Doug this afternoon. Is there anything else you might need from me? And I'm like, no, we're good. But I mean, just she's really good at what she
On the
does.
ball, on the
And
ball,
so,
definitely. Yeah, no, I
so
appreciate you. I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, you can always hire, whomever, but it's a total game changer when you find people that actually love what you're doing. It's like they go the extra mile when they, are excited about what you're up to. So,
yeah, that is always like really, really helpful.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, well, I'll tell you, like I said, we got to connect before and get to know each other a little bit. And like, heck, I am just really inspired by you and the work that you're doing. I've been looking forward to having this conversation today and doing this interview, Doug. And we're going to dig in and I'm just going to start though with just a nice, easy, simple question and get us rolling, and we'll dive deeper from there. And so we'll just start with, Doug, what do you do and who do you serve?
Yeah, well, we serve a large demographic of people. I mean, we have everything from infants to geriatric patients, and we we focus on orthopedics as kind of our inroad,
Okay.
and but that is through multiple modalities. So at Structural Elements, we have everything from acupuncture to chiropractics to physical therapy, massage therapy, Pilates, medical weight loss, yoga. We have, just a number of inroads, but everything that we're doing is to try and improve the health and the longevity of people's joints so that they can keep moving. And it's our belief that the moment you stop moving, bad things happen. So we really are here as enablers. Yes, we work with athletes, we've worked with professional athletes, but it's really about helping people achieve their active goal. So for some people, that's to get down on the floor with their grandkids and be able to play with them and not hurt. For some people, that's hitting a golf ball, and for others, it's running 100 miles. So whatever it looks like, we serve a very wide demographic.
Yeah. So how did you get into doing this kind of work, Doug? What's your backstory?
Yeah, so my backstory, I was an athlete, and my mother used to say that she's surprised that I didn't glow in the dark because I'd had so many X-rays by the time I was in high school. So I always had a bit of an adventurous spirit, let's say that.
Okay,
And
okay.
so, I thought it was a good idea to do things like ride my bike down the slide, with my eyes closed and jump off of, garage roofs and things like that. So I always had an adventurous spirit, and was a competitive athlete. I played soccer and ran track and things like that. And after high school, got really into endurance sports and adventure sports. I did a lot of rock climbing and backcountry skiing and mountain biking and all that sort of thing. So I was a patient a lot, is really what got me into this. I actually broke my wrist as a freshman in high school. I was started on varsity and broke my wrist the very first game. So I was super bummed out. And my orthopedic surgeon, not my favorite, he kind of set an expectation that I should be happy that he salvaged the hand, but don't expect a lot of use out of it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I live to play soccer. I'm a goalkeeper. So as a 14-year-old, I thought that was really unacceptable. And my therapist that I went to see for the rehab, he said, Doug, the reason I do what I do is because the human body has an amazing capacity to heal. It's going to be hard work, but if you put the work in, you're going to get the results. And we did just that. And honestly, I decided I wanted to be involved on that side of the equation. And so from an early age, I knew physical medicine was going to be my path. And it all started as being a patient with that experience.
Wow, wow. So what does the transition look like? So started out as a patient and got told by a doctor, you got informed of a prognosis that you're like, you know what? I don't like that. I'm going to get a second opinion on this. You know?
Yeah,
And
well, so when I was in high school, I had a track coach that put on a like an athletic training class for us,
okay.
right? And I loved it. I was super engaged. I love, stretching athletes and taping people up and giving them the ice pack and doing all that sort of thing. And so I had this interest in physical medicine. And he's the one that really locked it in for me. He said, Doug, he said, why don't you think about taking a furlough year before you go to college and going to massage school? And he said, if you do that, you're going to have a trade that you can make decent money as you pursue higher education, and you can work in different environments to zero in on what you want to study. And it clicked. It was like a light bulb went off. His name is Larry
Wow.
Gardner. I'll never forget this guy. And I did just that, right? I was like, that makes so much sense to me. So I took a furlough year after high school. I went to massage school. I was 18 years old. I'm now 50, so I've been standing over a table for 32 years. So I've seen it all. But I did just that, and I've worked in just about every environment under the sun, and I've worked in PT clinics and chiropractic offices and in pain management and work comp, and I really got to try on a lot of different things before kind of landing on orthopedics and settling on now what's a cash practice, and now ultimately we've become a franchise to help other people figure out how to work in a cash practice and grow it as well. But it's all because I've had years and years of experience in all of these different environments.
Yeah, yeah. So what inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact you guys get to have?
I mean, I get up every day because we change lives. And I say that, not from a place of ego, but it's just the truth. When people have been living in pain, and I don't know if you've ever experienced true back pain or true neck pain where something really is pinched and causing nerve irritation. Unfortunately, I have. But it's debilitating, and when you get people to go from being in pain and having their quality of life affected to getting them back to doing the things that they love to do, it's just endlessly rewarding. You know, and unfortunately, I've become, especially in the field of orthopedics, I've become very disillusioned by the options that we have in conventional care. It's a lot of conventional care has been so restricted to only getting to spend a very small amount of time with patients. And usually they're just, looking for some sort of symptom management, not really asking the question as to what is the causative factor here. And because we're in an environment, we are a cash practice, we get to spend a full hour with our patients, we can really look for solutions. We're not limited to the site of pain in terms of our intervention. And that really gives us the autonomy to solve problems. And you'd be amazed at the number of people that come in with neck pain and we find a problem with their feet, or people that come in with foot pain and we find the problem is in their posture and their head forward, posture. So being able to look at the whole person, treating the whole person as an intelligent system versus just treating them as an injured part, makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So, what's an example? I mean, and you can come up with tons of examples. Maybe there's more than one that you even want to share. So, what's examples of results that you have helped get for patients that you're just incredibly proud of?
Yeah, and again, we treat a wide demographic of people.
Yeah.
So I can give examples of everything from an infant that couldn't turn their head to the left. They had severe torticollis from birth trauma. And after one visit, we were able to get them to turn their head to the left. And this
Wow.
little baby's eyes just got so big. They're like, there's a whole other side over here, that they'd
Wow.
only been able to go, midline to the right. And so if that weren't treated, the complications that baby would grow with and all the compensations. I mean, it's a game changer, right? And then on the very opposite end of the spectrum, we've worked with some NFL players where we've been able to extend their careers. We have one NFL guy who's going into his 15th season as an offensive lineman. It's unheard of for him to have that longevity in his career. But we understood the patterns and we know kind of his body really well. And we've been able to support him in a tremendously successful career. So, to me, it's not, a hierarchy of nobody's more
Yeah,
important than the other. That
yeah.
that baby I'm just as proud of as that NFL career.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, just different situations. And yeah, I mean, I've seen those videos of babies getting to see or hear for the first time. It's like, man, that is so emotional. Just
It is.
watching the look on that baby's face, like, mom,
Well, they have
and
no context that they don't hear or see, right? And all of a sudden you wake up senses or all of a sudden you expose them to a whole other, plane of movement and their little systems are just taking in so much information that it's just almost overwhelmed when they get that surprise of being
yeah.
able to experience like an expanded state. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you've been doing how many years now have you been doing this, Doug?
So I've been standing over a table for 32 years,
Okay.
but I've as a therapist, but I'm now in year 13 as a clinic owner and year 10 as a CEO of a franchise company.
Yeah.
So it's really expanded far beyond my clinical practice. I still maintain a small clinical practice because I enjoy it so much. And a lot of what we provide to the people that join our system, as far as the other providers, is ongoing education. So I like to keep my clinical skills sharpened. But yeah, it's really evolved into being a facilitator of helping more individuals access this type of care and really supporting providers with an environment that allows them a third option. A lot of providers are either they stay in the insurance world and they collect a paycheck, or they have to take a bunch of risk, go off on their own and hang their own shingle and build their own brand, which takes them away from patient care in a different way, right? So we really try to be the facilitator where we can help the providers only focus on patient care, and that results in really top level quality of care for our patients.
Okay. So, with where you're at right now, you've got to this point. What's your vision going forward for this and for the impact you're
Well,
making?
my good friends who know me well have always called me the chief of many big plans, right? So I definitely I have a big goal for not just for myself, but for the brand because I think that there's a lot of people out there. As I said, I've become a little bit frustrated with some of the limitations in insurance-based care and some of the lack of options that people have to really, go after cause of their pain or dysfunction. So I want to see this care and this work available to as many people as possible. Our let me say it this way. What we recently raised money against in terms of, promising to the people that invested in us is a goal of 125 clinics in the next 5 years,
Okay.
franchised clinics. Yeah. So that is our current growth plan, and we're spending and we're assembling the team to against that work in that
Okay.
plan. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, okay, so now that we've got, a little bit of context set and listeners have a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you're all about, Doug, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to start talking about the relationship side of all this. And so, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I will go back and just re-mention this track coach because he really set me on this path,
Okay.
and that was a really early influence that who knows if I'd gone right to college if I would have taken a different path or whatever. But going on that path of developing a trade and starting to work as young as I did in the industry, I think has just given me the salt on my skin, has given me the time in the industry to really have a lot to offer. So that was definitely a pivotal relationship for me. But you know, with without any question about it, the most influential pivot in my life was meeting my wife. And not only do we share, she works in the company as well. She's our chief communications officer, but she's also a Pilates and movement therapist here. So she and I have this very similar interest in terms of how the body moves, and our geek gets to come out a lot. It's hard to be around us when we really start talking about this stuff. You can get lost pretty quick. But no, we met in DC when I was working for a different company. She was, finishing up her degree. And one of our first dates was we decided that we were going to run a marathon together,
Oh, wow.
and over the course of this, we realized that, we had so much in common about the body and everything else. And she has just had this unwavering support of really supporting what was initially started off as my vision, right, of structural elements. And she's really folded into it and taken a tremendously active role. And without her support, without her contribution, and then I'll add to that, without her family, because her dad is a very successful entrepreneur and businessman, and a lot of times people say that a daughter will marry their father, right? Well, it is absolutely the case. We're two peas in a pod. And her family has also been extremely supportive in helping us pursue this larger goal, and everything from making sure that I have a steady hand on the helm when business gets tough, and he has been very risk exposed for a lot of his career. They've done acquisitions and had to put banking packages together and dealt with business partners and all of this. And so just having somebody that's been through it,
Yeah.
has given me a lot of confidence, when, at times you feel like this is too risky, this is too hard, it's never going to pan out, and to see somebody that's been through it all the way through, a successful exit and all of that is really inspiring, and so for me, meeting my wife and really having, her support, her companionship through, building this company together, and ultimately she even, was the one to recently push me to write my first book, So I just feel like I've accomplished what I've been able to accomplish because of the support, that she's given me.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned your first book. Let's talk about that. What's the title of your book?
So the title of the book is called The Extreme Center. Okay, and those
Okay.
are a little bit of a juxtaposition, right? But I went to a Buddhist college. I studied Chinese medicine, so I've had kind of a background of a lot of Eastern philosophy and exposure to different Buddhist thoughts and philosophies. There's a Buddhist philosophy around it's called the middle path. Okay, and the middle path is basically a strategy of avoiding the extremes, right? Living kind of in moderation and not, really indulging in the extremes too much. Well, it's my experience that in today's fast-paced world, with constant information that's coming at us, being endlessly tethered to, our devices and being expected to be accessible at all times of day and everything else, that the pace of the world is constantly exposing us to the extremes. And so the idea that we're somehow supposed to find peace by avoiding all of this chaos, I just think is an unrealistic expectation. In my experience, if you're going to build capacity to be a high functioning individual, you better be really good at processing all of what life is asking you to manage. So becoming a resilient, having this resilient center where you can process information from the extremes is what builds true capacity. And that's a conversation with the nervous system. That's a conversation with, our own what I call somatic literacy, which is our awareness of how stress impacts the body and when we're hitting that red zone, when we're hitting that sympathetic state, having the awareness that we're there and then the tools to come down from it and to down regulate and to metabolize stress in real time. Otherwise, it accumulates and it gets the best of you. You'll fragment and you'll get sick or injured. So it's really a book about helping people, from my clinical expertise and years of experience, but also from a lot of my adventuring and a lot of my, exposure in business. And there's a lot of times, I now am the author of a book about managing stress. Well, guess what? Just because I know this stuff doesn't mean I'm any less susceptible to it getting the better of me, right? I still have to use the tools in the book just like everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's meant to be a bit of a practical guide to help people who are, trying to be high performers, who are managing family life, who are managing, a heavy workload, or trying to be a good supportive, dad and go to their kids' games and, be a good neighbor and a good homeowner and pet owner. It's a lot, man. Like this stuff all layers on top of each other. And so in this load dense world, we need skills and we need tools to address it.
Yeah. 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 Wow. For sure. Well, so um what is an example? Well, first of all, let me make sure there wasn't anybody else that you wanted to talk about or honor today first. I know.
Those are the big ones, man. I mean,
Okay.
we could have an episode, 10 more episodes where I could highlight, other individuals because
Sure.
there's been a lot of them in my life. But I've said this many, many times that I find myself just smart enough to know that I need to surround myself by people that are experts in what they do,
Yeah.
right? I know that I'm one of the best in the world of standing over a table and lining bodies up. It's what I've done my entire career. But when it comes to franchise growth, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to social media, when it comes to, all of these things, I've just surrounded myself by a really solid team of people. And what I can hire internally, I've done. What I've had to hire fractally in terms of vendors and outside of the organization, I've done. But it's like spend the money to surround yourself with people that are experts in what they do. And so
Absolutely.
there's been a number of people that have contributed greatly to me being here today.
You bet. Yeah. And I'm with you 100%. We can be really good at what we do. And we spend years and years focusing on developing our experience and our expertise. But then there's all this other stuff that we're not good at, and we need help with some of that.
No doubt
And
about it.
that is just the life of an entrepreneur. Heck, that's the life, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, that's everybody.
Yeah, well, it
And
is.
so,
And it's interesting because early on, when we decided to use franchise as a path to scale, really it was a decision based on trying to protect intellectual property of the modalities that we created, of the clinical approach. And because it had already been taught publicly, there was no real patent process that it qualified for. And, I'd spent a lot of my earlier career teaching continuing education to other providers, physical therapists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, chiropractors. And it's such a transient environment when you have a therapist trying to seek their continuing education. There's a required number of credits to keep your license current. Once
right.
they fulfill those, then you might not see somebody for the level 2 or the level 3, right? But I didn't just want to teach, weekend workshops. I wanted to mentor therapists throughout their career, not just, okay, you've learned these technical skills, now go use them. Because the practice of medicine is so much more than just being able to apply, like manipulations and interventions. It's really about context. It's really about understanding people. It's about filling your schedule with patients. It's a marketing thing. It's a practice management. There's so many aspects that contribute to the delivery of care. And so I really wanted to, mentor people for a longer period of time. And when I started looking into franchise, it gave me that ongoing access, to the therapist where we're in a longer relationship.
Mm.
But in order to exist as a franchise, you have to systematize absolutely everything. And so starting to think in the terms of is this scalable from, every aspect of the business is so different than growing a mom and pop business for a number of years and then trying to get yourself out of the way. Right? A
Yeah.
lot of people really struggle to replace themselves
You-
because all systems point to them being the
Yes.
decision maker and
Yeah.
them being involved, in the room. And so, from a very, early stage in the development of structural elements, my goal is to make myself completely replaceable.
Yeah.
And that's very different when you're in a franchise system than starting an endeavor that doesn't have that end in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right, that to for a business to be sellable, it has to like not rely on the owner because who's going to be able to buy it?
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
Well, and that's exactly what you see with a lot of private practice, right?
totally,
I mean, you
totally.
see this in dentists and
Yep,
chiropractors and medical
yep,
doctors is, they build something of tremendous value to them,
yeah,
but is it transferable?
yeah,
Right? And a lot of those relationships, they've built the trust over years, and somebody that isn't just going to walk in and trust somebody else, right?
yeah,
Or can somebody else deliver the same quality of care? Have they written the training guides and the SOPs to be able to train somebody else to really do what they do, right? So that they are replaceable. And that was one of our early kind of proof of concepts that we really had to get past is people, some of my early investors, things like that, they said, all right, Doug, I fully believe in what you do, right? But you're special. Can you train somebody? Can really somebody else be taught how to do what you do? And now, we have, a couple thousand five-star Google reviews that don't mention my name,
that's
right?
awesome.
We have evangelists of, Chuck has evangelists and Dave have evangelists and Jason have evangelists, and people don't even know who the founder of Structural Elements is. They're just going to this, place and receiving care from all these other therapists that are getting the same results. So to me, that makes me feel really good at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
yeah, you bet, you bet. Wow. Well, what's an example of a situation, Doug, where you personally got to make a really substantial impact and maybe in the moment maybe it even surprised you a little bit. You were like, wow, look at what happened there. And yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of the people that you mentioned, your wife or the other gentleman. What's an example of a situation where you were empowered in that way?
Man, I've got a lot to choose from. I'm a fortunate guy when it comes to this stuff because I really do. I get to have these wonderful experiences all the time. I'm going to use an example of a gentleman who has worked with me now for about 13 years.
Okay.
And his story is one that I absolutely love because he's one of the hardest working guys that you'll ever meet. And he was a physical therapy assistant early in his career.
Okay.
And he went to massage school to gain more autonomy so that he didn't have to work under a physical therapist. He had a license that he had his own autonomy. And he came to work, for me early on. And it was the first environment that he ever was able to work in where he had full, like ability to treat patients from beginning to end without anybody else telling him what to do. But he had absolutely no idea how to run a business, how to market himself. As good as he was in the treatment room, he was very, very shy about going out and selling himself in any way because he'd always taken a paycheck, right? People just showed up and used their insurance.
Yep.
And I really took him under my wing, and as a massage therapist, he's making over six figures a year now, right? Working 4 days a week. And it's not just the monetary aspect, but he's just completely come out of his shell. He now is the guy who's taking new therapists in the system and teaching them the ropes of how to get out there and
Wow.
market themselves and go to events and it's just so cool to watch
Yeah.
not only somebody come into their own, but I grew up as a martial artist and I grew up, kind of really liking lineages, right? And for me to be able to deliver care is good. To be able to teach somebody else to deliver care is better. But to be able to teach somebody is the
Yeah.
best,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of where I'm at in my career right now is a lot of people that I've gotten to mentor are now being the ones who get to go out and mentor and to teach. And for me, that is just like the most fulfilling piece around it, is because I think you get a lot back when are able to give that to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And to now watch them getting to be on the receiving end of how good it feels to support somebody else, that's what's really cool for me in the culture that we've built.
Yeah. Yeah. And and like that's got to be really rewarding for you because of the systems that you put in place now and just watching the impact that you get to make just spread and get larger and larger and larger, and without you being the one who does it all,
Exactly. Yeah,
and
yeah.
man, and that's the stuff that jazzes me too. Is I like making a really big impact. I mean, that's what inspires me. I want to make a really big impact, and I do not care one bit if the end users or the end beneficiaries even know that. Well, because most of the time they'll never know I was there, and
Right.
like I don't care. I'm
Yeah,
totally cool with that because I
yeah.
know.
I don't need the credit.
Yeah,
I
that's
that's
right. That's
it's
right.
for me. It's a through line. It's a lifeline that I want to develop something that lives beyond me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's I'm not gonna go too far down a tangent here. I started a little consulting business on the side called Med Growth to help, for people that don't fit into the franchise system, but whether it's, exiting a medical practice or a succession plan or anything like that.
Okay.
But I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, and I like I was a break dancer, and I still like a lot of rap groups and stuff like that. But Run DMC was always one of my favorite groups growing up. And there's a song like you be illin', and I like that, like the idea of ill, right? Like, are you ill? And ill in my consulting company stands for impact, legacy, and lifestyle. And for me, it is really the Venn diagram of achieving those three things simultaneously that is what success looks like. Because if you're not having an impact, right, and you're just making money, but you're not doing any good, I think you're not feeling the full potential of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And if you're not building a legacy, if you're not building something that lives beyond you, it's going to stop with you, and you're going to feel that, right? That
Yep.
hey man, this
Yep.
this was great while we had the ride, but now the ride's over, and there's nothing that really lives beyond me, you know? And then you have to maintain a lifestyle while you're doing it all because life's short and it's all for naught. You can't sacrifice every day thinking that eventually one day, you're gonna, be living in the golden light because, a lot of things come up in life. I've had a lot of people who have worked their whole lives to amass enough money to retire comfortably, and their health fails them and they can't enjoy it. So, but balancing those three things of developing a situation where you're having an impact, you're creating a legacy while maintaining a lifestyle that's enjoyable, to me, that's success.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Very cool. Well, for anyone who might be listening to this and thinking like, man, Kevin, I just really like Doug. I love who he is and how he shows up, and maybe they're interested in finding more out about what you guys are doing and stuff. Any websites, any resources we can share with folks?
Yeah, our main website, structuralelements.com, is
Okay.
where we have everything. There's kind of a fork in the road as far as people get to that site, and it's like, are you interested in becoming a patient and receiving
Okay.
care?
Uh-huh.
Find one of our locations, right? Or are you interested in opening a franchise or becoming a provider? It's all kind of, on that main site.
Okay.
And that kind of directs traffic for any interest in structural elements, whether it's, patient facing or business opportunities or for
Okay.
providers, all can go through that site.
Very good. And so if you listen to this, as always, we'll include the links down below. Just scroll right down and the show links will be there and stuff. Doug, is there any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I think that there's one thing that I like to leave people with because it's not language that you're going to get really many other places. And um, our nervous system, okay, is the main frame that really controls not only our mental state but also our long-term health. And our nervous system works off of, are we perceiving a threat or are we feeling safe? It is just that simple, okay? And most people will perceive threat when there's no threat around, right? So you get off of a busy highway and you get home and you've been, driving, 80 miles an hour. A lot of people never realize that they're off the highway, right? And they just go right on to the next thing. And the message that I want to leave people with is changing that reality takes no time at all. Okay. It's as easy as taking a deep inhale and taking a longer exhale than your inhale. That stimulates our vagus nerve and we can downregulate. But we should be doing that through multiple moments throughout every single day, right? You don't wait until you get your 2 weeks vacation to go to the beach to downregulate. Guess what? It ain't going to happen there, right? You don't wait until the holidays because there's going to be plenty of stimulation there. Guess what? Most people don't do it when they sleep either because they're still really wound up from their day. But we can absolutely control our destiny in terms of how our health is responding metabolically, how our mood is responding, all through just being aware of how physically capable we are of regulating our own nervous systems. And it doesn't take any money, it doesn't take any time. It just takes awareness and it takes using and controlling our breathing. And we can make a completely different human being of ourselves in no time flat. And I
Wow.
say that because most people don't really get that empowerment from their medical providers. We really think that we're dependent on these outside solutions and on our medications and on all these interventions. But if we just learn to take the small breaks in the day and just acknowledge that the stress is accumulating and to hit the reset, we can absolutely change our outcomes for the long haul.
Yeah. Wow. I really appreciate you sharing that. There's no hiding your passion for doing what you do, Doug. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today, and just share from your heart. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thank you so much, Doug.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.
You bet. You bet.